Hey everyone, my name is Bryce, and you are watching Bryce About Music, and we are back to take a look at some of my favorite albums released in the past month, specifically August 2018, and take a bow, August. This was a hell of a month, and full disclaimer, this video might go a little long because of just how many great albums came out in the past month. And to be honest, I was a little worried at the start. The first couple of big releases this month from Mitski and Travis Scott were fine, but they didn't elicit the feelings from me that I needed to talk about them on a segment like this. And then great album after great album just came out the rest of the month, and there will be links to listen to all of these albums in the description below, and you can let me know what you think of these albums as well as any you think I forgot or disagree with in the comments below. So let's get started. Idol's Joy as an Act of Resistance. This is the second album from the British punk band who surprised us with an excellent debut a couple of years ago called Brutalism, and they've returned with an album that ups the intensity, ups the noise, tones down the snarkiness a little bit, and takes a more direct approach to their commentary on socio-political issues. And it pairs that with dynamic, hard-hitting songwriting that clearly builds off of the influences from 70s and 80s punk and post-punk, and makes good on a lot of the potential shown on their debut. It's really a hell of an album, and one of my favorite punk releases to come out in a very long time. Hermit and the Recluse, Orpheus versus the Sirens. This is a collaborative album between Brooklyn rapper Ka and LA producer Animus, and they prove to be a perfect pair on this record, with Ka's slow, intricate flow and lyricism matching perfectly with Animus's more cinematic style beats. And the backdrop of this album is Greek mythology, which works into both the style of production and the lyrics. It's a perfect example of strong conceptual writing in a hip-hop album, and has a very golden age flavor to it while also doing something new and by extension sounding modern because of it. Thou, Magus. I've been a fan of Thou for a while now, and so it's great to see them grow into the band that they had the potential to be and reach a larger audience in doing so. And this particular album is such a dark, desolate mix of doom metal, drone, and all sorts of heavy experimental music. And I would say almost overwhelmingly so, especially considering how long it asked you to be engulfed in this mass of despair. But this thing nails its atmosphere, and it's heavy as hell, so if you're looking for a good doom or stoner metal record, this is a great one to try. Blood Orange, Negro, Swan. I've liked a lot of Blood Orange songs over the years, but this is really the first time that Devante has put it all together on an album for me. Negro Swan is just so layered, eclectic, filled with so many different types of funk, jazz, and soul, paired with his dark and abstract R&B, and the stories told on this album have significant weight to them, whether they're coming from Devante himself or one of the many featured artists throughout the album, and it really feels like the record that Blood Orange has been building to his entire career. And so if you're into Frank Ocean or early albums from The Weeknd, 100% check this one out. It's in that vein, but does an excellent job of trying something new in that alternative R&B style with pretty excellent results. Midair Thief, Crumbling. This is a lush and ethereal psychedelic folk and pop album from the South Korean band, certainly reminiscent of mid-2000s indie groups like Animal Collective and Grizzly Bear, and in a month where Animal Collective just put out yet another subpar release, do yourself a favor and listen to this one instead. It can put you in a type of psychedelic trance in a way that you would want from an album like this, so definitely go ahead and give this one a shot. Ken Mode, loved. This is an album that expands on the Canadian band's mixture of hardcore, sludge, and noise rock, and this one even has some jazz sections that not only break things up nicely, but only add to the dissonance of the record. It is a very dark and heavy sounding project, as you might expect from Ken Mode, but I think even darker than some of the other albums that they've done. And I appreciate that Ken Mode is not only able to keep up their intensity throughout the album, but keep things varied and interesting as well. The Necks, Body. This is a long improvised track from the Australian experimental group that has made a lot of long improvised tracks in their 30-year career. And this one is split into different sections that will move from ambient music to jazz to krautrock at one point. And I like the way that the album builds, I love the individual sections, and I like that the necks are just continuing to surprise me even this deep into their career. Armand Hammer, Paraffin, the third collaborative album between rappers Billy Woods and Elucid, and just overall, I love the way that these guys rap. I'm a huge fan of Billy Woods and his solo records, and this is probably my favorite collaboration that he's done with Elucid. I think the beats on this thing are incredibly abstract and fit the unique way that both men operate on the mic, and the chemistry between these two have never been better, and throughout the record, both artists are tackling serious issues in a darkly funny kind of way, and it all just works together. It fits in the kind of album that you would expect from Billy Woods and Elucid, and it's, again, probably the best record that the two have put out together. Iglooghost, Clear Tamei, and Steel Mogu, these are two EPs released simultaneously that don't necessarily venture far from what the Irish producer has been releasing previously on his album last year and some excellent EPs that he's released in the past. But there's just something infectious about his style. The beats here are just so glitchy and fast and frantic, and he has a way of sounding both intense and cutesy at the same time. And while if you're just going to check one of these out, I would probably recommend Clear Tamei a little bit more. That was my personal favorite of the two. There's really no reason to just listen to one unless you're new to Iglooghost and you're just looking for a taste of his sound. If you've heard his music before and are already a fan of his, these are both great, and you're going to listen to both anyway. They both get my recommendation. Avantdale Bowling Club, self-titled. This is the latest project from New Zealand rapper Tom Scott, but with him he has brought a jazz ensemble, and all of the production on this album is basically a jazz jam session. At least that's what it sounds like. The beats on this really do sound like a modal jazz project with a rapper telling earnest stories over them, and it all works together. It is one of the most musically involved jazz rap records that I've heard, and it's fascinating to listen to and a very beautiful mellow listen as well. Like, even though there is a lot going on, it never feels like too much. I definitely recommend this project if you are a fan of artists like Nujabes and, of course, A Tribe Called Quest and a lot of the classics of jazz rap. But if you're looking for an album that does something a little different with that, but still carries a lot of those same vibes and still has more of a lyrical, conscious tone to it, this is absolutely up your alley. Midori Takada and Lafawndah, renard bleu, a 20-minute single track and the first piece of new music from legendary Japanese ambient producer Midori Takada, whose classic album Through the Looking Glass was reissued last year after finding a bit of YouTube fame in recent years. And it's just great to hear Midori Takada again. She has such a unique style of drumming and composition, and Lafawndah provides a light but excellent vocal performance here that is a great contrast to Takada's spacious drumming. And this whole thing works as an engaging ambient project on its own, even though it was intended for a whole short film that you can watch as well. But it's just great to have Midori Takada back. Mac Miller, Swimming. This is, of course, the latest and final album from Pittsburgh rapper Mac Miller, who tragically passed away from a drug overdose just this Friday. And I don't even know where to start with this one. This album is a very personal one, and while certainly the biggest theme on this album is his very public breakup with pop star Ariana Grande, it deals with a lot more than that as well. There's themes of depression, addiction, and personal growth stemming from all of that, as it feels like someone who knows that they've been grappling with some strong demons, but also knows that they've been growing as a person as a result. And in terms of the music itself, it has more singing than a lot of other Mac Miller albums, with a lot of jazz-inspired beats, very atmospheric. And while I wouldn't necessarily say that Mac is the greatest singer in the world, I think that actually works to his benefit, as his voice sounds earnest and honest, and you can hear a lot of the flaws and some of the struggles in his vocal delivery. So all I can really say is rest in peace, Mac Miller. We've lost a very talented artist.